I was like, oh. I was like, man, you about to get me on one up in this coffee shop.
You just kept asking questions. And I think, one, here's the thing. I think more people need somebody like you in their life. You are direct. Let's put it that way. You
I'm
are
a
direct.
personality. I'm a driver, so it's hard to. That's why I'm glad people have you to like be the coach.
Yeah, because I put butter on the broccoli. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I make it go down easy.
I'd be like, this broccoli steamed. Eat this broccoli.
You don't need nothing else. You used your butter 10 years ago.
I'd be like, this broccoli is good for you. Eat this broccoli.
So we do have different styles. Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all. Let's get into it. Hey, babe. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm feeling good. I done had a little snack. You know, I feel like when I'm low on energy, my little snacks help me.
Right.
So
you've had your snacks and you didn't need any drinks or anything?
Not today. I'm good.
Right.
I'm good. I feel like, I'm that I'm not the cookie monster, but what was the animal called in that movie that said "Feed me, Seymour"?
Oh, you talking about
Little House of Horrors? Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, Little Shop of Horrors.
Feed me, Seymour. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like that.
The only problem is that plant was eating people.
Right. I love that movie. You know that? Did you know
that? I didn't know you loved that movie.
I watched that movie over and over again. Such a weirdo in me, but I did.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, feed me, Seymour.
See, you don't watch the movie. Don't talk about me.
Of course, I watched the movie.
Little Shop of Horrors. Anyway,
we're gonna have to go back and watch that. But it's funny you bring that up because there's so many things that we watched when we were younger, and I remember trying to watch some of that stuff with our kids. I was like, whoa.
This don't translate in today.
Yeah, I was like, hold on. Now I'm a parent now. This is I don't want my kids watching this.
We watched Coming to America. And I was like, now this is a classic because you can't watch the second one without having watched the first one.
Yeah.
And when I watched the first one, I was like, oh my gosh, we watched this?
Yeah. I mean, it's still a great movie, but it was a lot of sexual innuendos.
It was.
I was surprised. I did not remember that. And it's just funny how your perspective changes when you become a parent.
You got to sing the song, babe.
What song is that?
She's a queen. Come on. Come on, baby.
Yes, you are a queen.
You got to sing it, though.
Nah, I'm good. I'm solid.
Anyway, so speaking of having our kids experience stuff that we have experienced, we don't want them to experience debt the way that we did. So when we got married, we had about $60,000 in debt. And then we went further into debt because those little jokers, we felt like we needed some new cars to help.
Ran it up.
Cart them little people around. But we had to find our way out of $90,000 in debt. And we were in our 20s. And that's a heavy, hard, arduous road to take.
That's a stiff burden to bear.
It is. And we didn't know anything about money. But we knew enough to know that debt, being in debt, staying in debt, and passing that on to our kids was not what we wanted to do.
I think that's the smartest thing that we did was we were like, hold on, this just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
We didn't know exactly how we were going to get out of debt or what we were going to do. But we knew, one, incurring additional debt, like continuing to do that wasn't the jam. And so we knew we had to do something to change our current situation and to modify what our family tree could look like. And so we decided that we wanted to try and create generational wealth. And that's a multi-pronged approach. And it's not something that is just, I hear people say they want to create generational wealth, but then they're not changing any of their actions or behaviors. They're doing the same thing that they've done, but they're expecting to get a different outcome. And they're like, Lord, bless me. Lord, bless me with some generational wealth.
Oh, Lord.
And look, God can add his super to your natural, but you got to do some things in the natural as well.
Yeah. Do you think like that you knew when you were 24, 25, 26 about generational wealth? Did you understand it?
I think I knew I wanted something different.
Right.
That's what I knew.
Yeah.
I knew that I saw my mom struggle, and she was a hard worker. And she worked hard, but she just never seemed to have enough. And though she had some education, she had a job. I wouldn't say she necessarily had created a career.
Mm.
And so she was able to provide for us, with food, clothing, shelter, transportation. But there were a lot of things that we didn't have or couldn't do because we were just living. We were just surviving.
Yeah.
And she did the best she could with the hand that she was dealt. But when I started to think about now, especially when I think about generational wealth, I think about how to process. And just getting up and going to work and working hard, in my estimation, isn't enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. And I will also add, I wanted something different. I had no idea what generational wealth was. And I only knew that debt was not the answer. I just, that's all I knew. And you know what's interesting is your mother still passed something down to you. She still passed the home down. There was an asset.
Yeah.
And there were things in that home. My mother was never a homeowner on her own. When my parents were married, they had a home, but she never acquired that type of asset on her own. She was always a renter in her single life. And so her desire is to do something different, which is, she's got some life insurance and things like that, but she doesn't have
that big asset,
substantial assets to pass. Even if all you had was a home and no money, you know what I mean? Like it kind of makes a difference when you're trying to think about what does it look like to pass something on.
And I think the only challenge, my mom had a house, but the value of the house was just
right,
not high. I mean, it was an asset. If we needed a place to live, somebody could have moved into the house because it was a decent house, but it just wasn't a high value house.
Yeah.
And that's where people typically build their biggest portion of their wealth is through home ownership.
Yeah.
And I'm glad she was able to participate in that because she did take pride in having her own home. But when we talk about what does it mean to create generational wealth, like give me some of your thoughts around what that means when you think about that, or even if you have clients and you talk to them about creating generational wealth, what exactly does that mean?
So it's really about an asset being passed down to the next generation. It doesn't have to be your kid. If you don't have any children, it could be to nieces and nephews. It could be, but you actually, when you pass on, you're leaving something, an asset, financial or property or land or something to the next generation. And so, and wealth is subjective. I mean, we've talked about that before. It doesn't have to be like a certain dollar amount. I mean, I think that passing down assets, you get to choose what you're passing down, and your actions determine what you get to pass down. So, and a lot of people don't come to me to figure out how to do that because I'm not a financial advisor or planner, but I think it's important that if you don't have a budget, or if you're not saving, or if you're not making it a priority, or you staying in debt, you're eating into your ability to have generational wealth.
I find it interesting because I recently met up with a friend, and we thought we were just getting together to talk about coffee. I mean, to talk about coffee. To
What
have
did you
coffee.
talk about coffee, babe?
Well, we were getting together to have coffee and talk about some different things. And just in the course of the conversation, he was saying things, and I was like, "Hold on, man! Like, I don't." I keyed in on the things that he was talking about, because he was talking about working, grinding, hustling, which are all good traits. and he has a business that he owns, you know, and he's been trying to build that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's good, that's cool, but like he just gives his money to his wife and says, you know, just do what you want to do. And she's trying to get him to have like money meetings and
And
talk about the budget.
that's red flag number one, that he gives her the money and
Right.
like, do whatever, honey.
Or he had a business account and he just wasn't touching it. And it just prompted a lot of conversation. And I think like, now I know that's not every man, because every man not just handing over
Right.
his money, you know, but like they should have joint accounts.
Right. And they should have conversations.
Right.
He shouldn't leave the decision making to her.
I told him, I mean, I felt, I guess I didn't even feel bad.
You got in his tail.
Because when we were talking, I was like, you are irresponsible. Said, because you are putting the pressure on your wife to make all the decisions and not providing any input.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what leadership in a home should look like.
Right.
And so it was one of those things where I had to give him some truths that, as a friend, in a semi-loving manner.
Not fully loving?
Well, I mean, it was definitely loving.
Only partially loving?
I mean, it was a loving manner, but I think I was just stern in my delivery.
You told him he was irresponsible, though.
Yeah, I was stern in my delivery, and that could have, offended him, but he was like, I think it shook him. He was like, whoa. Like, that's a hard thing to say to somebody, a man to say to another man, like, you're irresponsible. Mm-hmm. It's like, whoa, hold on, bro.
You woke him up.
Yeah, because I said, that's not fair to you, because I started pulling out Bible verses. I was like, I said, it said the wife is subject to the husband. It says, ye wives, submit to your husbands. But then I said, the Bible also says, likewise, ye husbands, submit to your own wives as unto the Lord. Mm-hmm. I was like, so you have a responsibility to submit to her, just like she has a responsibility to submit to you, because you guys are a team. You are a pair. Not one person should just carry the entire load. Mm-hmm. And I know that you and I, we are often yin and yang. Like, if I'm high, sometimes you may be low, and I may carry the bulk of the load then. Mm-hmm. But then sometimes you're high and I'm low, and you carry the load, because that's what partnership looks like. Yeah. And that's what I had to tell him, was like, this is what partnership looks like. And you can go and you can work a bunch of hours and, just be like, yeah, I'm hustling, I'm grinding. And it's like, you're not going to get generational wealth just by hustling, just by grinding. That can create income, but then you got to know what to do with that income. You got to place that income somewhere. You got to, and I asked about insurance, and they didn't have insurance. I was like, man, you about to get me on one up in this coffee shop.
You just kept asking questions. And I think, here's the thing. I think more people need somebody like you in their life. You are direct. Let's put it that way. You are direct.
I'm a personality. I'm a driver, so it's hard to. That's why I'm glad people have you to like be the coach.
Yeah, because I put butter on the broccoli. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I make it go down easy.
I'd be like, this broccoli steamed. Eat this broccoli.
You don't need nothing else. You used your butter 10 years ago.
I'd be like, this broccoli is good for you. Eat this broccoli.
So we do have different styles.
Yes.
We do have different styles. But I do think that it is important for people to have somebody that's going to jerk their chain in their life.
Yeah.
But also, he had a misguided idea of what generational wealth is, because he was trying to earn a big income. Mm-hmm. And
nothing wrong with having a big income that you earn, but
if he died
that can't
today,
be the only thing.
If he died today, he's not left anything. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Like, he might have a savings account, but that's not wealth. Yeah. Right? And
that income ends with you and your ability to work.
Right. And then the other thing I was thinking about, as you were talking about the fact that he's a business owner, is he needs to build that business so that he could walk away. Like, he doesn't have to be involved in it, so that it's actually an asset that is able to
Right.
be
It
passed
creates
down.
residual income
Right. And
for him.
so or systems that are put in place and things like that, because it's no guarantee that his kids want to be in that business, but if he actually wants to pass it down as an asset, he needs to ensure that it's not completely 100% tied to him.
Right. Or if he wants to sell it,
Right, that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
He can't be the only way that it
right.
survives.
Because that's not a business, that's a job.
Yep.
You bought yourself a
I
job.
know, because I
And
got one of them. Right? Like that's
yeah,
real.
so
It's real.
right.
You know?
But then even like with the business side of it, I was like, okay, well, because you're, self-employed, single employee, do you have like a SEP?
Mm-hmm.
He was like, what is that? I was like, oh, Jesus. I was like, we got some work to do.
Yeah, so that's a self-employment plan. So it's essentially the business or self-employed person's way to invest like a 401k to like put
Right.
pre-tax dollars in for their future. And they have, a limitation on what how much that is, just like everyone does in their 401k. But if you're not investing for the future in dollars you're not touching today because you're not spending it today, you're saving it for the future, that can grow into generational wealth.
Yeah. And when I think we need to be clear, like when I talk about generational wealth, I'm thinking of, like you said, assets that you can pass on from one generation to the next. And a generation could be, from us to our grandkids, like you skip a level.
Yeah, you told our kids that you're not gonna need our money, so
Right, because we're training them today to do the things that we didn't know.
yeah,
So I feel like because we've learned and we've put things into practice, we can actually put our kids up on game.
right. And
And if they do the things that we're teaching them that we didn't know at those ages, when they get to our present state,
yeah,
they could be so much further ahead of us that it would allow us to leave assets, via trust or whatever to our grandkids.
and I had never thought about that until you said that, because it makes a lot of sense. Let's just say that we live to 90, right? So right now,
God willing,
amen. Because
I got a whole nother life ahead of me.
right, men are living till on average 85, and women are living till 90. Like the lifespan is longer now, and if we live that long, our kids will be like 60, 65, maybe. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like when you think about it, like they will be close to their own retirement. If you haven't figured it out at 60, 65 with us as parents, we haven't done our job. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like if we pass on, go on to glory, and we got people who are entering retirement, they should have already been planning and prepared
Yeah.
and have their own nest egg built.
Yes.
And so that when we pass on, we could pass on to our children, but we could certainly pass on to our grandchildren via, trust or other means or, assigned property, different things like that. And so now you're starting the next generation out with a head start. They have a trust. Look, I want to have some trust fund grandchildren. What about you, Ericka?
Oh my gosh. Are we about to have some Grey Poupon?
We want to have some trust fund
I don't want no
grandchildren.
caviar. Okay. So I'm not interested in no birds' eggs. Okay.
Those
What is it? Where do they come from? Where do they come from?
you said you so. Oh my God! You're not gonna get any caviar from birds' eggs.
Where
but
where does caviar
fish
come?
eggs?
Okay, fish. Okay. Fish eggs. Great. I'm not eating them. They look nasty. Okay. So
Look, you get that caviar, put it on them little crackers.
no. I'm gonna eat the
little
cracker.
crustinis.
Listen, wait. I'll pretend I'm gonna eat the
Caviar
cracker.
on the little crustinis,
Yep.
and then you put your finger.
You gonna tear it up, ain't you?
I'm not a big caviar
See?
person, so
So, but here's the thing. I just realized.
we want to be those we're those millionaires next door.
Yeah.
Low key.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Low
right.
key, I don't need caviar.
That's right. I'm not interested in that.
I make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, sometimes when I don't feel like, doing something.
I do want gourmet peanut butter and jelly though. Like But anyway, so what's interesting is we're trying to pass a financial head start onto our kids, but we've actually done two things that um, is helping us to create that for them. One, they did not start off their life in debt. So we still have one in college, but when she's done with school, she won't have any student loan debt and she won't have any car debt. She won't have any credit card debt because we helped ensure that they have that particular financial head start, both of them.
That, my friend, is called a trifecta.
There you go. Right. And the other part of this is they are already both investing.
Yep.
So our youngest, now she had an internship. We had her start her Roth IRA last year.
Yep.
Our oldest is already investing in her 401k and a Roth IRA at work. Like we are teaching them to do the things that we wish we had done at their age so that they have the financial head start necessary. In addition to that, I think because we're not at a phase where either one of them is engaged to be married or getting married anytime soon, we're talking to them about like, don't mess this up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying that they can't marry somebody who has debt, but I am saying don't do stupid things, and mess up the head start that we have given to you by, I don't know, spending too much money on somebody and then you reducing your 401k, those kinds of things that could mess up what we've done to help you ensure that you didn't start off in the hole the way that we did.
Yeah, and I'm very proud of what they're already choosing to do and how they're choosing to move because they have listened to us, and that I'm reminded with them when I might be hounding them or kind of nagging them about something, and they'll remind me, Dad, you got to just give me the opportunity to do the things that you've taught me, the things that you put into me. Give me the opportunity to bring them out. And that is important to me. I'm like, okay, well, let me chill out. Let me step back because I have to trust that you've listened, you've gotten it. And so when I hear people talk about generational wealth, I think it's important for, the parents or one generation to help outline some of those steps. Like, hey, don't go into, consumer debt or debt at all. Ensure that you're saving for your future. Make sure you have an emergency fund built. Make sure you have insurance to protect you and your family should something happen to you. If you're a business owner, make sure you have, a self-employed pension plan that you can utilize to invest through your business for your retirement. And we can go on and on because there's different things that you can do to create that generational wealth. Like everybody needs cars, and we talked about cars, previously, but, maybe you buy a 1 or 2 year old car instead of buying brand new cars. It's all about the decisions and the decision making that you put in place that will help take you down the road of generational wealth. And so as we talk about that, I mean, what are some steps that you think people need to put in place to ensure that they can have generational wealth?
I think the first thing is make sure you have your financial house in order. I think that it's difficult to give anybody anything out of an empty cup, right? So just take care of you.
That's
and,
good.
And that's what we did. We got out of debt. We learned how to have an emergency fund. We purchased a home. And then we tried to be stable so that we could actually save. If you are in a stable situation with your finances, you're not wondering if you can pay the credit card off or, how you're going to be able to move. You have the extra to be able to invest for the future. You take care of your assets, your car, your house. You actually have something to give. But if you are running on empty fumes, always living paycheck to paycheck, it's going to be hard for you to figure out what it looks like to plan for the next generation. And so I think the first step is getting your own financial house in order because I think it's a catch term. I feel like people want to sound savvy by saying they want to create generational wealth. And what I would prefer as a coach is figure out what it looks like to have financial stability. And then we can have that conversation about generational wealth second.
As I go back to my friend and the conversation we were having in the coffee shop, one thing I stressed with him was that you got to get knowledge and you got to get understanding so you know what to do, why you're doing it, and how to do it. And I think it's all. I'm always reminded, and you've heard me say this over the years, the 4 stages of competence. And the first stage is unconscious incompetent. You don't know what you're doing, you don't know why you're doing it, and you don't know how to do it. And you go through those stages until you get to the point of conscious competence. I think it's conscious competence is the highest state,
Yeah.
where you don't even have to think about it. It's just innate. You know why to do it, how to do it. You don't even have to think about it. And that's where we all want to aspire to. Like when something comes up, oh yeah, I need to respond this way. This is what I need to do. Because like, me, I'm like Johnny on the spot. I just be taking care of business. And that's what we say. That's how we categorize it. You just take care of business. Yeah, because I don't have to think about it, because now I know. And I know how to respond. If a circumstance comes, just like, boom, I know what to do. And it's not, I'm not special. And I was telling him that, like, you just have to go and get knowledge. And if you get knowledge from someone who explains things in a way where you can't get it, that's not the person to work with or to do business with. Only work and do business with people that are going to help you understand why you're doing what you're doing and how to do what it is that you need to do. And I even made it real simple. I said, you need to go home and you need to tell your wife you're going to sit down and have a money conversation with her.
Have you followed up with him?
He actually followed up with me right after that. But it's about time for me to check back in.
Check back in and see how that conversation went.
Right, because he said it went well, but I don't want that to be one and done.
Sure.
And that could have easily been, all right, I did it, check the box. No, this needs to be ongoing because this is a process. It's not a one and done to create generational wealth. And you just go and you work yourself to death trying to create income, but you don't have any process, any procedures, nothing in place to sustain you long term.
And I think that's the other thing is I'm sure that his wife, his family would appreciate him being around because he's figured out how to be available, create a business, invest for the future, and not hustle so hard that he's never available to his family. And that's the other thing.
Or he's available to the business 24/7. Like you gotta have some boundaries.
Boundaries, yeah. And that's the thing that I appreciate about what we've tried to do is it's not all about the money either. You know what I'm saying? It's about spending time with our kids. You actually had a really good conversation with one of our daughters the other day. And I think parts of it might have been hard for her to hear, but you were able to, really say, hey, these are some things that have been on my mind. And it came off loving. She received it because she was like, thank you, Dad. Thank you, Dad. And so, like, we're trying to give them, all of us, and that requires time and attention.
It's interesting you bring that up because, like, as kids get older, you have to give them space to, learn, make their own decisions.
And mess up.
Yeah, and the relationship changes and it shifts, and it becomes a point where you become an advisor.
Yeah.
And advisors give advice when asked.
That's so hard.
It is very hard for parents to transition. And I've been working on standing back, allowing them to come to me to ask questions when they want my input and they want my feedback.
And you and I have this dance that we do with our kids because we don't always talk to them at the same time.
Right.
And so there's some stuff that they will have said to you that they didn't get to say to me because we didn't get to talk or I was on a
phone. They're like, you all need to talk to each other.
And then some stuff that one said to me, and just this weekend, you was like, did she call you? And I'm like, no. And I was like, and he said, well, let me act surprised when you talk to her. I was like, no, don't tell me.
Right.
Let her tell me. Let her tell me.
Right.
But we do have this dance that we do with our kids because they don't live in the house, now. And when we talk to them, it's at different times. And it's like, I want to know what's going on,
Right.
just like you want to know what's going on.
But I had to tell our daughter, I said, look, sometimes a father has to just be a father and say what needs to be said.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is one of those moments. I'm just being your father because I'm saying some things that need to be said. Mm-hmm. And I need you to hear what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And that's why she could receive it in a loving spirit, because she knew that I had her best interest at heart. Yeah. And I was really trying to give her insight. And, I just joke. I say, we're trying to put them up on game so they can have the outcomes and live the lives that they want to live.
Their best life.
But it doesn't just come by happenstance. It comes with thoughtful, intentional work and approaches to things that, they're getting. Mm-hmm. And so, wherever you're listening to this, if you're on YouTube, make sure you press like and subscribe. And if you're on one of the podcast platforms, also you can press like there as well and subscribe. But wherever you're listening, just hear what we're saying to you is that it won't happen overnight. And so I guess my make it worth it is, figure out where you are and where you need to start. Mm-hmm. And if it's getting in tune with your spouse, make that your first step. Get in tune with your spouse. And if it's seeking out some financial literacy or getting some knowledge to help increase your understanding, then take that step. But make sure you have a process in place that can help you truly build generational wealth and not just a job that's going to help you create, income, which is good. But, should you pass on, that income ends with you.
Mm-hmm. That's
what
good.
About you?
That's good. I guess, what? You asked me a good question. You said, what is the first step? And so I'm going to say my make it worth it is, get your financial house in order so that you can set yourself up to be in a good position to have assets to actually pass on. So that's literally all the work that I've been doing for 2 decades, really, is helping people get their financial house in order. And I think that we need to reframe the definition of, generational wealth so that we're being intentional. I think somebody who's a teacher making $60,000 a year can actually create generational wealth.
We've seen examples of that in our family.
Absolutely. And so
your aunt and uncle, they both were teachers, and shoot, they retired well.
Yeah. And have something to pass on. And so, it's independent of income. If you're smart with what you have, then you can pass something on to the next generation so that they have a financial head start. So I'm glad we talked about this, babe.
Yeah, I think this is an important topic, and, keep coming back, keep listening, and until next time,
we're out.
Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on ForBetterAndWorth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.